America has enemies within, and they've joined forces in opposition to our rights and freedoms. A recent report on the unholy alliance between globalists, Marxists, and Hamas terrorists and the recent anti-Israel campus protests lays bare how these strange bedfellows are united in hate of the United States and our freedoms. Author Jeff Reynolds explains how these astroturf radical protests have sinister connections. As he writes, the fight to sustain individual liberty faces powerful foes. Those foes have adopted the BDS cause in a false moral equivalency, redefining Israel's society as an apartheid state. He explains how one group, the Palestinian Campaign for the Academic and Cultural Boycott of Israel, or PACBI, has infiltrated our universities and has ties to the terrorist group that runs Palestine, Hamas. So where is our Justice Department as America gets penetrated by these pro-terrorism groups? It looks like Western governments and NGOs are actually funding America's demise through protest consultants and professional agitators being funded by the likes of Soros's Open Society Institute and the Tides Foundation. Globalists, Marxists, and pro-Hamas groups have coalesced into a dangerous force to brainwash our college students into supporting a terrorist regime and hating their own country and seeking to destroy it. Author Jeff Reynolds, the senior researcher at Restoration of America, joins us now to explain what he found while writing this alarming report. I must say, these are strange bedfellows, as I noted just a little while earlier. Jeff, tell me what you found in constructing this report for Restoration of America.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, Emerald. I really appreciate the opportunity. This was quite a project. It was several weeks worth of reporting and research, and it took me a long time to kind of put it all together. But really, at the end of it, this is the culmination of the same foes that put together things like the 1999 WTO protests in Seattle. That morphed into the Occupy Wall Street movement in 2011-12 and turned into the protests against Donald Trump after he got elected president in 2016-17. And, you know, it's the same people that were backing Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd protests, before that, the Michael Ferguson protests and the Trayvon Martin protests. So, I mean, it's really an unbroken line between all of these different groups getting funding from taxpayer-supported nonprofit organizations that enjoy the protections of the IRS under the 501c3 and C4 codes.
And in some instances, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually getting taxpayer-funded dollars, right, through the grants that they get via the State Department. It was largely where they come from, correct?
Yeah, well, it's from a lot of different sources.
Okay.
The Biden administration has weaponized a lot of the federal agencies to give out grants. The EPA gives out environmental justice grants. In November, they approved like $3.5 billion for environmental justice grants. There are environmental groups that are involved in the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas protests. You know, so they've kind of merged all of these movements into one grand unifying anti-American movement. And it's not just the U.S. government either. There are lots of European governments. The government of Qatar, which supports Al Jazeera and also houses the leaders of Hamas, they give billions of dollars every year to American universities. And one of the things that came out in this report that I didn't realize is there's a direct correlation to the amount of anti-Semitic incidents and anti-free speech protests and incidents on campuses that receive the most money from foreign governments.
That makes sense. Tell me, how is spending, and maybe we don't know this yet, but spending for this year, because I would imagine, as you noted, these movements come at very pivotal times in our political cycle, right? We're approaching perhaps the most important presidential election in U.S. history. It's going to determine what path our country continues on, I would say, and I think we'll be going, you know, indefinitely down that path should the Biden regime remain in office, or whoever they put in his place, if not Biden. The jury's still out on that one, right?
Right.
But it's still the same people. These are the people who ran the Obama administration. These are the people who,
Yep.
and the government, the bureaucracy is just infiltrated with actually the people who adhere, who believe in these Marxist ideals and make sure that the money goes to these people and these groups, right? So has the activity picked up in spending? Are they getting more money because we're in the midst of a key presidential cycle?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely picked up simply because the Inflation Reduction Act granted a lot of money to these kinds of activities. It has nothing to do with inflation, of course. It's only an environmental bill, but we're actually digging into this right now. I'll have a report out soon about the amount of money that goes into the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, BDS, that whole entire universe. And preliminary numbers right now, I've dug up $500 million from just the year 2022 that's gone to organizations that support this kind of thing.
And I would imagine that that's just from the amount you can find, because so often this grant money is couched in confusing language that detracts from the real destination of the funds. You think it's going for this, but no, it's going to fund these pro-Hamas demonstrations.
There's a lot of that going on, and that's why one of the conclusions I come to in the report is that we desperately need big philanthropy reform. We need a total overhaul of the IRS codes, and we need criminal investigations via the Treasury, via the Department of Justice, all of the agencies that, for instance, investigated all of the terrorist ties after 9/11, for instance. We need to fire that stuff back up again and find all of the people that are involved in supporting terrorism in our government, throughout our culture, and at our universities. There are a lot of reforms that need to be done, and the election is vital to determine whether or not that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if it continues with the Biden regime, that kind of reform will not happen. And if you get a new administration, say it's the Trump administration, look, they have to take it more seriously. Because I covered the Trump White House for 4 years and the totality of the administration. And I can tell you, I talked to America First loyalists who did make it into government. There wasn't so many that made it in, but some did, and they were appalled at what they saw continuing to be funded under the Trump administration, because there just wasn't enough focus on it. So I do hope that your report gets into the hands of perhaps movers and shakers who might be a part of the next Trump administration, and that they take it seriously. I can tell you, in the arts, I mean, they were still funding like Obama, transgender type art. And so you can kind of just imagine at DHS, right? If that's happening at the arts, imagine at DHS.
Yeah, and of course, you go back to the why does the EPA and the IRS have to have a bunch of AR-15s that they purchase? There's all kinds of things that need to be cleaned up, and again, it's going to be determined by the election. I have actually more whistleblowers than I know what to do with at the moment. I've got so many interviews with whistleblowers about the things that need to be cleaned up, and a Trump 47 administration has its work cut out for it, because there are so many things wrong right now that threaten the actual foundations of our society that we need to fix. And it's going to take more than one administration, but one administration at least needs to start the process of getting this stuff cleaned up.
Absolutely. And you just said something very important. The whistleblowers will be vital to helping a potential Trump administration begin that cleanup. And that's up to Congress also to help protect them, because I think they have been a little bit derelict in helping protect whistleblowers who do come forward to try to expose the corruption. So there's a lot of work to be done. Reports like yours and Restoration PAC for America are very helpful in helping, like I said, potential employees, political appointees in the next administration. And I appreciate your work. I'll be anxious to see the next report on the total figure that you find. I know you gave us the preliminary. I have a feeling you're going to find more. So please come back and share what you find with our viewers.
I would love to. And there's so much more information than even got into the report. I've got so many other articles up at the website. So check it out at restorationofamerica.com.
Absolutely. Do that, our audience. Thank you, Jeff. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Emerald. I appreciate it.